g of x is equal to infinity. Okay? Your limit as x approaches positive infinity, this is where you have your x-axis as your limit, okay? So g of x is equal to 0. Right, now let's talk about translating an exponential graph. So, or transforming, I mean. I know most of you are going to plug it into the calculator and see what happens when you do your assignment, which is fine. But to have in your notes, it's nice to have this in your notes just so you can kind of look at it and see what it should look like. If I'm graphing the function 2 raised to the x, okay, if I went through and if I made a table and I plugged in 0 for my x, so I'm going to always plug in that first, okay, so 2 to the 0 is going to give me 1, so I know that I have a point 0, 1. If I plug in a 1 for my x, I know I'm going to have a point at 1, 2. If I plug in a 2, it's going to be 2, 4, because 2 raised to the second power is 4. If I put a negative 1 in there, I know I'm going to get 1/2, because remember, a negative exponent is going to put that 2 down in the denominator. Okay, so this is what f of x equals 2 to the x would look like. Now, if I change the function and said that it's f of x equals 2 raised to the x subtract 1, what happens here is now when I plug in a 0 here, I get a negative 1. Okay, and that gives me 1/2. So it's there, and then when I plug in a 1, I get 2 to the 0, which gives me 1. And when I plug in 2, this time I'm going to get 2 to the 1, which gives me 2. Okay, so what essentially is happening, if I'm subtracting a 1 from my exponent, it shifts your graph right 1 unit. So when you subtract 1, you're going right. Okay? Now, if I switch this graph and I made it a negative 2 raised to the x, what happens is your graph flops over your x-axis. It's a reflection over your x-axis. Okay? If you change it and you say it's 2 raised to a negative x, negative exponent, it reflects it over the y-axis. So this one is reflected over the y-axis, so it flips it from a increasing function, which would be this, to a decreasing function. Okay, that is all the notes I have for you today. Your assignment that you need to work on is going to be page 286. 286 in your textbook. And the problems I want you to work through are 2 through 34 evens. Okay, good luck.